It's another beautiful day, a good time for us to talk about business as usual, to talk about finance, and to talk about trendy economic issues across the globe. For us at Souk TV, we're prepared to give you the best. What a way to start the morning with us. It's the dawn of a new week and the dawn of a new day. It's Souk TV, and this is Early Exchange. I am Femi Ayodele. You see, what a good way to start the day with us. Today we have a lot of things in store for you. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about finance. We're going to talk about news update. We're going to give you news update, news that are trending across the whole world. But before we do that, which is the first thing for us to start with, let's go on this short break. And when we return, we'll start the program proper. Stay with us. Glad you have you join us on Early Exchange. We want to take you around the world now with news update, and as usual, Vivian is standing by to take you around the world of business. Vivian, good morning.
Good morning, Femi, and good morning to you. Welcome to Morning News Update on Souk News. Like Femi said, I am Vivian Oguche. So let's begin from Nigeria, where President Tinubu has approved the nomination of Dr. Olayemi Michael Cardoso to serve as the new governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, for a term of 5 years at the first instance, pending his confirmation by the Nigerian Senate. Now, aside from the Lagos-born Cardoso, Tinubu appointed 4 deputy governors in conformity with the Section 8, Subsection 1 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2007. Furthermore, the president has also approved the nomination of Jamila Ibrahim to serve as the Minister of Youth, pending her confirmation by the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, while Ayodele Olawande is to serve as the Minister of State for Youth. Meanwhile, a Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Development Study Center, ADSC, Ambassador Victor Walsh Oluwafemi, has urged President Bola Tinubu to rebrand Nigeria's social relief efforts from palliative to social interventions. In an open letter to President Tinubu titled Rebranding Nigeria's Social Relief Efforts, Why We Must Shift from Palliative to Social Interventions, Ambassador Oluwafemi highlighted the need for a paradigm shift in terminology and mindset. Ambassador Oluwafemi noted that the term palliative has become associated with short-term relief measures, implying a transient mindset and undermining the importance of long-term strategies for improvement. He proposed the term social interventions as a replacement, emphasizing that this new terminology will instill a sense of permanency and strategy in social and economic relief programs. To implement this shift, Ambassador Oluwafemi called for collective action involving policymakers, non-governmental organizations, civil society groups, political parties, business leaders, and the general public. He proposed hosting workshops, seminars, and awareness campaigns to enlighten stakeholders on the significance of this language shift and its impact on the effectiveness and reach of social and economic programs. And now, 6 state governors and 7 ministers will be part of President Bola Tinubu's 17-man delegation to this year's United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in New York from the 18th to 26th of September. President Tinubu will be accompanied by Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo, Umoina of Akwa Ibom, Mohammed Yahaya of Gombe State, Ubasani of Kaduna State, Abdul Rahman Abdul Razak of Kwara State, and Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State, in what will be his first appearance at the yearly meeting as Nigeria's president. Now, the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngulali, disclosed that at least 7 ministers would also accompany the President as he looks to pursue new investment deals at roundtable talks with chief executives of 4 multinational companies, as well as bilateral talks with presidents and prime ministers. While engaging with officials at the National Association of Security Dealers Automated Quotations headquarters in New York City, President Tinubu will have the honor of conducting the NASDAQ closing ceremony during its trading session, making President Tinubu the first African president to do this. Well, moving on now, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, and Indorama Energy Limited on Saturday signed a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, for the development of a multi-billion-dollar gas project in Nigeria. Speaking at the event, Group Executive Officer NNPCL, Mele Kyari, said Indorama would invest nothing less than $7 billion in the project, stating that this plan will make Nigeria one of the largest producers of urea and fertilizer. He said the project will contribute about $3 billion worth of gross domestic product yearly to Nigeria's economy adding that President Bola Tinubu had ordered the NNPCL to provide gas to the Indian firm. On his part, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Africa, Indorama Energy Limited, Manish Mundra, described the partnership as a strategic collaboration to position Nigeria as the largest producer of urea and fertilizer. In another development, the British High Commission says it will explore collaboration with the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, in order to attain renewable, clean energy and green infrastructure in the Niger Delta. This was made known in a statement by the Second Secretary of the British High Commission, Abuja, Hamish Tai. He disclosed this during a visit to the NDDC Managing Director, Samuel Obuku, at the Commission's headquarters in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Tai said that the NDDC had shown a commitment to realizing sustainable development in the Niger Delta region through partnerships and collaborations with national and international development agencies. Meanwhile, Obuku told the delegation that the Commission had made public-private partnership its focus to drive the development of the region. Now, the governments of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have all signed a security deal promising to come to each other's help in the event of any rebellion and external threats. All three countries were members of the France-supported G5 Sahel Alliance joint force, with Chad and Mauritania, established in 2017 to fight Islamist groups in the region. Now, France's relationship with the three countries have since turned bad after the coups. France has been forced to withdraw its troops from Mali and Burkina Faso, just as it is in a fight with the junta that seized power in Niger, which had asked states to withdraw its forces and ambassador. France, however, has refused to recognize the authority of the junta. And on a sad note now, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has reported that at least 11,300 people have died and 10,100 at the least are missing from the coastal city of Derna 1 week after Storm Daniel hit northeastern Libya. An estimated 170 people have been killed as a result of the flooding elsewhere in the country, and more than 40,000 people have been displaced, the UN report said, citing the latest data from the International Organization for Migration. Figures are expected to rise as search and rescue efforts continue to look for survivors. Well, we'll take a short break now. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and its Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, says the IMF and the World Bank will decide whether to go ahead with the October 9 to 15 annual meetings in earthquake-hit Morocco after completing a thorough review of the country's ability to host the meeting. According to her, the IMF had reached a staff-level agreement with Morocco to provide a $1.3 billion loan to support Morocco's resilience to climate-related disasters from the fund's new Resilience and Sustainability Trust. IMF's managing director said the $1.3 billion loan for Morocco still needed approval from the IMF's executive board, but the board consideration would likely take place 2 weeks before the annual meetings begin. Morocco also has access to a $5 billion flexible credit line from the IMF approved in April, which is aimed at strengthening the country's crisis prevention capabilities. In her talks with the Moroccan Prime Minister Aziz Akhannouch, Georgieva said the IMF and the World Bank would not want to be a burden to Morocco as it deals with recovery efforts. However, she said the Prime Minister told her that it will be devastating on the country's hospitality sector if the meeting does not take place in Marrakesh. adding that she had agreed to look for ways to cut down on the length of the meeting or a reduction in the number of attendees if the meeting was to hold in Marrakesh. And as a part of ongoing efforts and for readiness trial for Terminal A ahead of its opening in November, Abu Dhabi Airport is conducting its largest live trial and testing exercise to date with more than 6,000 volunteers selected from communities across board. The operational trial involves playing an essential part in robust simulations that are designed to test or to stress test equipment, staff, and procedures in major operating areas of the terminal. The systems and processes being tested include check-in and baggage, security screening, boarding gates, immigration and customs, according to the Managing Director and Interim Chief Executive Officer of the Abu Dhabi Airports, Elena Solini. With the capability to handle 45 million passengers per year, the process 11,000 passengers per hour, the terminal will provide the foundation of Abu Dhabi's tourism sector expansion and cement its position as a global gateway and aviation hub. Now, Ukrainian port authorities says 2 cargo vessels on Saturday arrived Ukraine, the first ships to use a temporary corridor to sail into the Black Sea ports and Lone Green for Africa and Asia. Speaking on the development, the Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Oleksandr Kubrakov said the vessels were due to load almost 20,000 tons of grain to Africa and Asia. The loading are a test of Ukraine's ability to operate or reopen shipping lanes at a time when Russia is trying to impose and reimpose its actual blockade, having abandoned the grain deal in July. Over now to the UK, where the Bank of England, BOE, is likely to increase interest rates once again this week, possibly the last for one of the great tightening cycles of the last 100 years, as a cooling economy begins to worry policymakers. All except one of 65 economists polled by Reuters in recent days predicted the BOE will raise bank rate to 5.5% on Thursday from 5.25%, which will mark its highest level since 2007. Financial markets are less certain that economists, with rate futures on Friday showing a 25% chance of a pause, but are both coming to review the series of rises in borrowing costs since December 2021 and is seeing its last days. Much of the data over the last week underscores Governor Andrew Bailey's comment this month that the BOE was much nearer to ending its tightening cycle. However, data between now and Thursday's announcement could yet change the debate. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has called the embargo placed by the U.S. on Cuba illegal and condemned the inclusion of Cuba in the last list of state sponsors of terrorism. He made this known just hours before he left for New York, where he would attend the United Nations General Assembly and have bilateral talks with Biden. Cuba had earlier expressed concerns over the label and Washington's decades-old Cold War-era economic embargo against the island governed by the Communist Party of Cuba. Now, the 27-member European Union, the country's top trade partner, has also repeatedly rejected trade embargo. Now, Cuba and critics of the economic sanctions say the embargo prevents and hampers access to food, medicine, and other critical development supplies. Now, the U.S. State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Lula's remarks, although the Biden administration had earlier said that the U.S. law includes exemptions and authorization for exports of food, medicine, and other humanitarian goods to Cuba. In the meantime, the U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith is asking a judge to impose limits on statements from former President Donald Trump regarding a Washington, D.C. court case over his attempt to overturn his 2020 election defeat according to a court filing on Friday. Prosecutors want Trump restricted from giving statements about the identity, testimony, or credibility of prospective witnesses. They also want restrictions on comments about any party, witness, attorney, court personnel, or potential jurors that are derogatory and inflammatory or intimidating. Judge Tanya Chuktan has given Trump's legal team up to September 25 to respond to the government's request. Meanwhile, in a statement to supporters on Saturday, Trump accused the Biden administration of attempting to support on Saturday, and he accused the Biden administration of attempting to impose a gag order on him. Earlier last week, Trump filed a motion asking Chuktan to recuse herself from the case, saying her prior statements about some defendants in the January 6 cases reveal bias. And with that, we wrap up the news update this morning. We will take a short break, and when we come back, the exchange continues. I am Vivian Oguche.
All right, it's early exchange. It's time for us to do what we call news analysis, to look at the stories that are trending and for us to do proper conversation as regards the stories. And I'm joined by Dr. Idauza, our in-house analyst, as usual. Idauza, glad to have you join us.
Femi, good morning.
I feel like calling you the wise man this morning. It's our best. I give you different names at different episodes. Glad to have you join us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Vivian is here too. Vivian, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Glad to have your company as usual.
Yeah, this is part 2 of you and I having this conversation.
Yeah, that's great. All right, we have a good news. We have a new CBN. You know, it's been said his name has been sent to the National Assembly, yeah. And we have a prospective. Let me use that word because it has not been confirmed. So we have a prospective CBN governor. Let me start with that, Idauza. What's your take on the persona of the CBN and the profile of the CBN governor?
Well, I think we are in for some good time. One of the things that actually interested me when the name Cardoso was announced is that, again, the president has gone back to his constituency to look for somebody who will be able to do the job for him. And one thing that we cannot take away from the last administration was a discord between the fiscal and the monetary policy. Now, by this appointment, we're seeing people who are having same framework for thinking. Don't forget that Cardoso was the economic commissioner in Lagos State, while the finance minister was the finance commissioner. So they had worked together, they have blended together. So it will just be a perfect blend of these two people bringing their head together and especially also understanding the monetary policy terrain. A renowned banker of repute, an economist, driving the process. And I think it will be a lot of economic dividend for Nigerians as the days progress. We hope that, of course, he passes through the screening of the Senate and then, of course, become the substantive CBN governor, where the others that have been appointed also serve in the board of CBN.
You know, some days ago, last week actually, we talked about an institution, a functional institution.
Yeah.
So when you have people like this in the president's cabinet, you can make a safe prediction and put your money on it, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're just dealing with people that you already know what they are capable of doing. Mm-hmm. And like I said to people, since President Bola Tinubu left office in Lagos in 2007, he has had this colloquium around his birthday. And every time they sit down in that meeting thinking, is always economy, how to push the agenda of a working Nigeria. And now these men have been at this table sitting together, review what they feel is good for Nigeria. So for me, and I think is that now the ground is set to test these philosophies and thinking around economic policies. And we're only expecting to see that they are able to put their hearts together and confront this hydra-headed economic challenge that the nation faces.
All right. Let's move on to the next story. The Chief Executive Officer of the African Development Studies Center, Ambassador Victor Oluwafemi, has urged President Tinubu to rebrand Nigeria's social relief efforts from palliative to social interventions. I'm very sure you talked about this, that was last week. You said you don't like using the word palliative. And our very own, the Chief Executive of African Development Center, Ambassador Wash, is also towing that path, saying that it should be rebranded, not to be called palliatives, but social interventions. Your take on this?
Yeah, but you see, it's looking at the concept palliative itself and what it is. You see, when somebody is sick and you're trying to, yes, of course, try to just get somebody to be stable a lot. And I think what we really need to do, we should get beyond these handouts that we're doing to people and put a comprehensive policy in place to actually see how we can actually pull people out of poverty. The whole idea is not giving people fish to eat. The idea should be teaching people how to fish. And that's the only way the economy can become really robust. And then, of course, we can actually see the dividends that is, of course, Nigerians really need to see. So I think it's a call that is in order and in place. Why we always say that, look, palliative is not the right word, it seems a misnomer. We should be looking at how do we really intervene, how will government do this? And then, of course, we can see to move people away from poverty rather than keep giving them these handouts we do on a daily basis in the name of palliative. Because the real truth of the matter is that those things really cannot sustain any family if they are to live decently. So what government should really focus on is to see how do we really address these social issues that we are able to cater for the needs of these people in a sustainable manner. Because even from government point of view, it's also not sustainable. Of course, you remember that after the removal of the subsidy, the president announced a 5 billion palliative to states. States said they've received just 2 billion. Now they will since have disbursed those 2 billion. Now we don't know when the next tranche is coming. And what happened to the poor who just received maybe a cup of rice and then is exhausted? So we cannot continue in that trajectory. We should be able to change the way and approach to solving problems. And I have always had this conviction that we as a people must see how to set people up, give them opportunity to exploit businesses, make profits, and then at the end of the day, they are able to actually take care of themselves. And I think that's possible.
You know, so his argument is the word palliative, it's not really the word palliative that's a problem, but that it's the mindset behind the word palliative. That when you say palliative, it's short term. But the argument of Ambassador Oluwafemi is let's think about a long-term solution. And then he made recommendations, paradigm shift, change of mindset. You know, let me. There's a quote I'd like to read from. He said that the term palliative has become synonymous with governmental and non-governmental programs aimed at providing short-term relief. So if we are looking at a long-term solution, the change might not be immediate, right?
Yeah, but it can be immediate, really.
Oh, okay.
It can be immediate. There is so much that government can do in terms of social intervention. Take, for example,
how do you get people to how do you get the people to understand that this is what you're doing?
Yeah, but this is what government really need to do.
Okay.
Elsewhere, what people do, they get into health sector, for example, and give health insurance to people who are poor.
Okay. So
even that 2 billion, if you use it for health insurance for a majority of people, that will be able to take care of health challenges. Where you have people who are not able to afford medication or to go to the hospital, now government has made it possible for them. We also have talked about investment in the transportation sector.
So it's a form of subsidy?
Yes, that's what it is. The kind of an approach that you are going to give to the people that, of course, they are going to continue to enjoy. Because if you pay premium for an insurance, health insurance, for example, you won't pay it again until next year. And that thing can run for 12 months. So that's more sustainable than giving somebody a cup of garri and a cup of rice, and 2 days is finished. And then, of course, he's still having the same heart that, look, this government has not done anything. So I think it should be done more sustainably. And that's what people are doing elsewhere, really not giving handouts. It could come in the form of even tuition. You know, government can decide to say, well, we are giving grants to some people to be able to go to school. Now, this kind of investment, the nation will never lose. But when we just consume, we buy rice to consume today, we are waiting for another 3 or 4 months. Then, of course, even the government itself continue to earn a bad image. So my own approach to these issues is actually to see we have people, we have farmlands. We can even go into agriculture, for example, and give money and said, okay, get a whole lot of people who are underemployed, put this money in their hand, let them do farm in a different way, and then even government gets revenue from it. Why these other people also get themselves sorted by ways of wages and salary.
So it's a win-win situation.
A win-win situation. That's what it should be. Not really every day we give somebody 2,000, 3,000, and then of course we think it will go a long way. Because the fuel subsidy regime has been removed and it has come to stay. So we are not hoping to see it tomorrow. So palliative is something that you use maybe when you have a natural disaster, as we're speaking in Libya just now, to just give people immediate relief out of the trouble. But I don't think the kind of environment where we're talking about absolute poverty, that this kind of handouts should be really encouraged.
Vivian, you talked about earlier how to get people to key into this. Part of what Ambassador Oluwafemi, part of his recommendation, he proposed hosting workshops, seminars, and campaigns to enlighten stakeholders on the significance of this language shift and its impact on effectiveness and the reach of social and economic programs.
Fantastic. That's holistic.
Yeah, that's
so
holistic.
You get people to understand that
exactly.
I'm not taking palliatives away, but this is the new language.
That is it. And this calls for the need for orientation, you know, national orientation. That's good. Moving on, 6 state governors and 7 ministers will be part of President Bola Tinubu's 17-man delegation to this year's United Nations General Assembly in New York. This question comes in, Hidauza. Why do we need to have a 17-man delegate to you?
I think, again, for me, it's also to say kudos to the president who walks his talk. Just last weeks or 2 ago, he said that those who have no business being in New York will not be allowed to travel. And now what we have seen is that we just see that and then one of the leanest delegation to hunger in the history of Nigeria. And then, of course, what this speaks to is that the president is also looking at people who are going to benefit, or the kind of a conversation is going to have. So these people are strategically selected to be part of this meeting. The governor of Kaduna State, the governor of Akwa Ibom State, the governor of Kwara State, so the governor of Oyo State. And I think this is the thinking of the president that, look, like Ajuri said, it's not just an hunger show alone. The president is actually going to the United States of America to go negotiate deals for Nigeria. And that's what the whole essence is. And then, of course, there would have been assessment of states where, of course, there are low-hanging fruits where people can quickly come in for investment. Don't forget that, for example, Akwa Ibom has been doing a whole lot in the area of green economy. Now, if you get to Kaduna, for example, you see they also be doing so much. Kwara has been a bastion for agriculture for a very long time. Now, all these things, I think, are strategic meetings that the president really wants to have. And like it was read in the news, it's not just even going to the hunger to read an address, but it's also even going to the Wall Street. You see, this is important, that he is going to the stock exchange to ring the closing bell.
You just took that right out of my mouth. I was going to say something to that. Yeah, and then this is it. He's going to be the first African president to do that.
That's remarkable.
It's a big deal, right?
It tells you what it is. This is a business president.
Yeah, but there's something also I wanted to speak to. Now, you said earlier on that they're just not going there for sightseeing.
No.
It's not even a tourism thing. No. Now, this is what Anjuri said, that there's going to be a roundtable talk with chief executives and of 4 multinational companies. So they already have their plan.
Oh, yes.
Chief executives of 4 multinational companies and presidents as well as prime ministers for bilateral talks.
Yeah. It's a purpose-driven meeting.
In a nutshell.
Oh, yeah. So just using the occasion of the Hunger Summit to really get into the U.S., look for willing investors. And don't forget, of course, there have been a whole lot of conversation and talks. And because, again, Bola is a friend of the U.S., as people say, he has a lot of people who have been doing the legwork. All that will be required at this moment is you're seeing the president sign deals and sign off, and then, of course, ready to take off. And I think for me, it's quite very heartwarming to know that you have a president who is not always thinking about jamboree, but is also thinking, how do we bring in foreign direct investment, which Nigeria needs so critically to be able to move these billions or millions of people out of poverty into great wealth.
You remember the president was in India last week to woo investors. That has yielded something remarkable. And now NNPCL and Indorama Energy Limited on Saturday signed an MOU for the development of a multi-billion-dollar gas project in Nigeria.
Oh, yeah. Great. Excellent. You know, last week, about the whole of Rivers State, led by their governor, went to pay homage to the president to say thank you for this opportunity. And I remember when the governor of Rivers State was speaking, Governor Fubara, he was saying that actually they have already made available land for Indorama to start operation. I wasn't thinking that this was going to be as quick as possible. Now the deal has been sealed. We're looking at a whopping $7 billion US dollars coming into Port Harcourt. Now, of course, you just see no production of fertilizer alone. Of course, these factories also expected to produce methanol. Is supposed to be producing urea. Now, all these things are going to really re-engineer the entire fabric of the agri sector in Nigeria. So we're no longer importing fertilizer. Nigeria should be ready to actually export fertilizers. And this is good news to farmers. and we're expecting an annual contribution to GDP of about 3.8 billion US dollars. That's massive.
That's massive.
Really massive. And that's just one part of the deal. Kudos to the president, kudos to NNPC and Indorama. And we do hope that, of course, the Niger Delta area will provide a safe place and haven for this company to actually operate and make profit, because that's another thing. Because you are putting money in, people should be able to make profit. And I think the people of the Niger Delta were looking at employment, both direct and indirect employment. 55,000 people is estimated to benefit from this largesse. This is good news to Nigerians, and this is good news to the people of Rivers State.
It's really good news, Vivian. You know, the collaboration is going to make Nigeria the largest producer of fertilizer and urea.
That's big.
That's big.
In the East was, in the Hausa's was, that's massive.
That's massive.
It's massive. Yeah, but I don't know if you see what I see here, because you were saying kudos to the president, kudos to the Niger Delta region, kudos to Indorama. Now, have you noticed that there is a collaboration across party lines and across regional lines? There seem to be no longer this, I am in the Niger Delta, I'm in APC, I'm in PDP. And have you noticed that there is unity? I mean,
yes. The temple is actually coming down.
Absolutely.
You see, this is one of the issues that I have spoken to. When you look at the political economy of nations, every nation builds their politics on the foundation of economy. But what we have done over the years is that we have made politics our superstructure. And this is why the tensions are always so high. Professor Claude Ake of blessed memory has said this in one of his books, How Politics Underdevelop Africa. And he said in that work that African leaders have never put development on the front burner. All that has been on the front burner is politics. So all we talk about is politics, all we dream is politics. But you have seen a president who is actually looking beyond politics to development. We saw that even in his cabinet. That even the hardest of his critics were even encouraged to serve in the government. Really extending olive branch as far as possible. You look at it, even the delegation from the governor's side that is going to the US is not just, it's all across party. So it's not about party politics. And that was what Fubara was actually saying when they had that visit. That it is the whole of River that's here. There's no party affiliation. It has nothing, everybody's here across all the major parties. We are all here to say thank you to Mr. President for your interest in River State and for the things you promised that you are going to do, and you are hit the ground running. We are here to say thank you to you, President.
We're here to say thank you to you, President. That's the submission of Idahosa. And I am very hopeful the President will live up to that. All right, what a way to wrap up the news analysis of this segment. Idahosa, thanks for sharing your thought with us.
All my pleasure to be here always.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll delve into the big discussion, the big story, the big conversation for the day. Stay with us. right, it's early exchange, and today we'll be looking at governance at the grassroots. You know, Nigeria has 3 tiers of government. You have the federal, you have the state, and you have the local government. And today we're going to focus on governance. We're going to look at administration. As far as local government is concerned, how does it look like in your own local government? Are you feeling federal government presence? Are you feeling the presence of your state government? These are issues we're going to look at today. To help us shed more light on this, we're being joined by Honorable Segun Olanipekun, who is a former lawmaker and a nation builder. Honorable Segun Olanipekun, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me.
What a pleasure to have you this morning. All right, let's start with you.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you join us once again. So let's start with you having a conversation as regards the assessment, your own assessment of local governance in Nigeria. I would like you to talk about local government administration, local government governance at the grassroots. Governance is supposed to be felt at the grassroots. But is that the situation as far as 774 local governments in Nigeria are concerned?
All right. Well, from my own perspective, I feel the way we are right now in Nigeria, the local government has not really lived up to its expectations, because the intention of the local government compared to other democracies around the world is to enable grassroots, the masses at the grassroots, to feel governance. But in Nigeria, that has been hindered by so many factors. Number one of it is the funding, and the number two is the power trail, the power tussle between the state government and the local governments. So when I talk about funding, you know, during the last administration, the former president, President Muhammadu Buhari, was working towards getting funds directly to the local government from the central purse, just as is done with state allocation. So they were trying to make it work like that to the local. When it came with a lot of fights from, especially from the governors, but I think that eventually scaled through. But prior to that, we've had issues whereby, you know, the money earmarked for local governments gets into the state account, and most governors just do as they seem fit with it, thereby causing a very huge lacuna and making the local government not to be able to function. So what the people elected at the local government level do, that's the local government chairman and the councillors, is they just dance to the tune of the governors. They end up paying just their local government salaries of the staff at the local government secretariat, and they are not able to do projects and, you know, their primary function of making governance to be felt at that local level. And that is a fundamental problem. The second one is, if a local government chairman is not dancing to the tune of a certain governor, a particular governor, you'll find out that that local government is stifled. No funding, no state support. You know, he can't really perform and he can't really do anything. So this has been a fundamental problem along the years in Nigeria, especially within the 774 local government. Then we have governors who have ended up trying to form local council development areas, that's LCDAs. So in the 1999 Constitution does not recognize LCDAs. What 1999 Constitution recognizes is 774 local governments. So those LCDs that have been created by this governor to make local governance is a form of decentralization to let it get it closer to the people are basically left unfunded because if the state government is not as robust, every state does not have that financial economy. For example, Lagos is a very robust state. So every state does not have that financial power like Lagos. So to be able to do that. So in some states whereby these local council development areas have been formed, they end up just being another administrative bottleneck, not being able to make an impact. So these are some of the challenges and the issues that we've seen over the years,
Let me come
and
in here,
it has made the
Honorable.
local governments, yes.
You said the local government is just like a sitting duck, not really making impact. So I want us to really talk about that. Nigeria is a
Yes.
decentralized state. You know, a three-tier system of federal, state, and local government, like Femi said earlier on. Our focus today is on local governments, right? So what is a local government empowered to do? What are the roles of a local government?
Yes, the roles of local government is number one, collect, and they are to collect local taxes. They have this radio tax they are supposed to collect. They are supposed to maintain the markets. They are supposed to do basic level environmental sanitation, control the environment and stuff like that. Basic level construction works, managing of all those local roads. There are local roads, there are state roads, there are federal roads. So they are also responsible for community health. So just like what you have at the state level, but a a more how will I put it, a more local kind of thing. So these are some of the functions they are supposed to do at that level.
Structure of a local government, you realize that most of the time the attention is on the chairman of the local government, the councillors are just there, and then other executives at the local level. Talk to us, what has been your observation as regards decentralization when it comes to local governance, and then let's look at the administration itself. How healthy is the local structure? Because it seems the old concentration is on the chairman of the local government.
Yes, the local government are supposed to also work closely with the traditional um, councils, the kings of the respective localities, in helping them enforce, security, health, education, and community works. But, because of how the power of just like I said, funding is he who pays the piper that dictates the tune. So in a local government, the chairman is the alpha and omega. That's why most of this, the power is really concentrated, and all you get to hear is that the chairman of a certain local government, chairman of a certain local government. In the local council, the councillors are like the legislative arm of the local government. They are to, make laws and, have like a check and balance on the executive, which is on the chairman itself and the vice chairman. But when a chairman, just like the governor stifles the chairman can also stifle the councillors. So is a potpourri of power tussle and financial mind. So that those are the basic problems that you have in the local councils.
Okay, let's talk about local government autonomy. You're aware there's a bill before the National Assembly, agitating for financial autonomy as far as local government is concerned. What is the state of this bill, and do you see this bill becoming the reality? Some states are passing it, they are passing it already. But why do you think they are foot dragging when it comes to the issue of the bill, and what do you think will come out of the bill if passed?
I feel personally that's the way to go, because if the local governments can get their funding directly from the federal allocation account, that's just the way FAC is shared to states. The states determine what they do with their money. So if the local government can get it directly from the federal account, they can also determine how they want to develop. If a serious-minded politician becomes a chairman of a local government, you see projects, things will be done. In the National Assembly, they can't shy away from it anymore, because as it is now, they have already seen the benefits, and most of them in the National Assembly, they've been local government chairman one way or the other, and some of them saw hell when they were local government chairman, and most of them are determined that this bottleneck of having to pass through state government, jack, joint state account, all those things are like creating a lot of problem. But as it is now, I believe that bill will pass, because majority from the fillers we've gotten is that majority are supporting that bill. And when it passes, I believe the dividends of democracy will be more enshrined at the local government level. So it's the way to go. Not that I'm saying all the governors are bad, or all the governors are going in this act of trying to have total control, but it's also a way of having political power. The local government makes up the numbers in elections. So if you have local government chairmen that are loyal to you, you end up during the general elections for the governorship, you will have control over, they will be able to do your work and get the people to vote for you. So I believe going forward, this funding issue has to be solved.
Okay, Honorable, I would like to ask, let it not seem like local government autonomy is all about money, funding, right?
Yeah.
If local governments are giving, or if a local government is giving autonomy, what are the dividends? What will be the, how do we enjoy it? What will be the essence of granting local governments autonomy?
Yes. When you grant them that autonomy, a local government can actually enforce its budget judiciously, without having to start thinking, okay, I have to going back and forth. You get what I'm saying? So if they have, if they presented a budget to their to the councillors, which is like their own House of Representatives, and it's passed, maybe they want to construct blocks of classroom in maybe a community, they can easily carry that out, because they have total control. The people at the local level, they already know what is coming to them. They can pay salaries, they can pay teachers. Local government also pay the teachers at the local level. So these are the way they can even hire graduates, people that are very qualified, depending on the quality they are looking for. These are some of the dividends that we can get at the local level. the markets, they can make the markets much more better than what we have all over Nigeria now, because those are some of their functions. And when you make the market much more better, you can now tax people, the shop owners. Okay, pay your taxes. You see, we've created road, we've created drainage that is leading to the market. You know, we have cleaners that are coming, cleaning the market. These are some of the benefits. If we're also looking at the issue of health, you know, the primary health care centers, they are also under those local governments. You know, they can hire doctors, but a local government that does not have funding, how will he hire a doctor, to an in-house doctor that will be able to attend to people? What you have there is people that are trained, maybe the community health extension workers, the junior CHU, and some few nurses. Hiring a doctor is expensive. So these are some of the areas. Just like I said, it's like running a state also. So a state is the broader perspective of the local government. So when they have their own autonomy and you have a solid governor who wants that system to work, you know, a governor must actually support you, just like the way federal government comes and intervenes in the states. We just heard that the federal government, you know, gave the states almost 5 billion naira each. These are some of the things, and you know, there's collaboration at that level. But the problem in Nigeria is the collaboration at the state level and the local government level. So these are some of the challenges that we face at this local government level.
All right. There's this argument that when you grant a chairman an autonomy, it makes him look like a superstar or the big brother of the local government. In a situation whereby he goes or he rules out of control, it's difficult to control the chairman. Talk to us, what can be done to ensure that the person who is being empowered, being given this autonomy to spend the money for the local government, is not out of control, because this is where leadership and management comes in. And this has been the concerns with state governors, that will this local government chairman become more powerful than the structure?
Yes, this also boils down to the politics that I'm talking about. Now, you have said that chairman go out of control. Definitely, you are not even supposed to control the chairman per se like that, because just like I said, there are 3 tiers of government: federal government on its own, state government on its own, local government on its own. It's a government meant to be headed by a chairman, just the way you have the state meant to be headed by a governor. People are elected into this position as chairman. So the people, the community, have elected an individual, just the way a governor was elected by a state. So in the real sense of it, if you want to look at it ideologically, nobody is supposed to, you are not supposed to be as a governor, you are not supposed to be looking to control a chairman, because if he was elected by the people, he should actually work for the people. But in Nigerian politics, that can't really happen, because the chairman is like most chairmen that we've seen, they see the governor as their mentor. And you know, politics, like they say, is local. So that's where you now have the dichotomy of politics and actually running a local government administration, that interference. So back to your question, talking about having the chairman not behaving the way the governor or the powers that be want them to behave. Ideally, that's not the way it's supposed to be. They are supposed to behave according to the way the people who elected them into that office want them to behave, which is to provide the dividends of democracy at the grassroots level.
I want us to dissect this issue further. I mean, recently the councillors of Ijebu East local government area of Ogun State impeached the suspended chairman of the local government, Wali Adedayo, over allegations of misappropriation of finances and diversion of council funds, among other allegations made against him. Is this what you're trying to say to us now, that you have councillors under the chairman who will check his activities, even while you say you don't control the chairman because he was elected like the president and the governor, but you have councillors who work under the chairman, right?
Yes. Now, these councillors, don't forget, they were also elected by the people. The councillor represents wards. For example, I'll give you an example of Ado Ekiti local government. You have 13 wards in Ado Ekiti local government, which means you have 13 councillors. And those councillors were elected by people from those 13 wards. Now, having been elected, just like you have the state assembly, whereby a constituency elects a honorable member in the state house of assembly. Having been elected, they are answerable to the people of that ward. Now, when they constitute themselves in the local assembly, they are like the house of assembly in the local level. So when a chairman goes out of line, they have the power to have checks and balances upon that chairman. Now, this is the funny part. If a governor, because of the politics I was talking about earlier, if a governor has an issue with a particular chairman, is as simple as, calling those legislators, those local legislators, to a closed door meeting and tell them, I need this chairman gone in the next 24 hours. It's as simple as that. Because just imagine a councillor to a governor. They are like, the governor is the mentor now, so it's the political mentor. So it's as simple as that. But that's politics. You understand? That's politics. Is the way it's played. That's Nigerian politics. But in the sense of it, if you want to look at it ideologically, the councillors have a duty to be the checks and balances of the chairman. If the chairman misappropriates funds, they have the right to call him, to investigate him, come out with a report. If he's found guilty, impeach him. And probably maybe the vice chairman will take over. Or if the both of them are culpable, impeach both of them. And another, maybe the leader of the local council, who is like their own speaker, will take over. So that's the way it's done.
All right. Let me ask you, will there be need to review legal framework guiding local governance in Nigeria, or local government in Nigeria? Because earlier you talked about the issue of LCDAs, whereby it's a necessity, but because the Constitution does not support it. So will you advocate for a review of the Constitution guiding local governance in Nigeria?
Yes, I would, because to me, the 1999 Constitution has a lot of lacuna. Sorry to say, because there were some things that the drafters of that Constitution didn't take cognizance of, and they couldn't put it to paper, because as at that time the school of thought was at a different level. So the Constitution does not back LCDAs. And I would like to refer you to what happened when the current President Tinubu, was the governor of Lagos State, and you have President Olusegun Obasanjo as the president. Governor Tinubu then he was the one that first of all started this LCDA stuff, and he created LCDAs in Lagos. And funding for local governments, for example, in the constitution, Nigeria only recognizes a certain number of local governments in Lagos, and the governor has gone ahead to create extra. So if the federal account is going to send money, it's going to send money to only the ones it recognizes. So who is going to fund the LCDAs? Do you get what I'm saying? So if there's a constitutional review,
Okay, we seem to have lost Honorable Segun Olanipekun there. We will take a short break though, but before that, I would like to say thank you so much, Honorable. We were going to say we'll call for a short break and also appreciate your appearance on the show, and also hope that when we invite you again, you will come, but you know, you just left. But thank you though. When we come back, we'll take a look at homegrown technological solutions and of course, domestic investments as it relates to local governance in Nigeria. You're still watching Early Exchange on Sook News. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
It's still early exchange, and our focus is still on local governance and administration as far as Nigeria is concerned. Earlier, we had a conversation with Honorable, Olanyekpekun, who talked about the need to decentralize the local government administration in Nigeria. Let me bring it to Vivian. You see the situation in Nigeria when it comes to local governance, where because as we know, there are three tiers of government. You have the federal, you have the state, you have the local government. But over the years, like he alluded to, you have a situation whereby the state government controls, when it comes to finance, when it comes to resources, as far as the state is concerned. Because the impression is also that the local government is also part of the territory of the state governor. So you have a situation, like he said, you see, because the local government chairman, they see the governor as a mentor, as their big brother when it comes to politics. So you see a situation whereby instead of having objectivity when it comes to local government governance, you have subjectivity to the view of the governor. So which is why the autonomy bill is coming on board, which is an interesting thing. It pains me that it has dragged over the years. But the good thing is, if this bill sees the light of the day, it's going to decentralize the administration at the local level, whereby a local government chairman can have direct access to funds to pay salaries, not just paying salaries, to construct roads, do infrastructural projects, and even do what we'll call governance closer to the people. I am hoping that this bill will be passed soon, so that at least it can decentralize the administration as far as local governance is concerned. We can have a better local government system.
Yeah, I mean, local governance is all about grassroots governance. No, but there's something the Honorable talked about earlier on that I'd like us to, further dissect. When you asked him about controlling a chairman, he said categorically that a chairman is not supposed to be controlled. So just like you have a president, and then you have the National Assembly, you have the Senate, and then you have the the green chamber as well, the red and the blue chamber, where they check the president. And then in the state, you have the state houses of assembly. In the local government, you have councillors that check the chairman. But then something very disturbing that the Honorable said was that if the big brother, the governor, this is what the Honorable we just talked about said, that if the big brother, the governor, doesn't want the chairman, he would just call the councillors, I want him out in 48 hours, and it is done. I mean, it's just like what plays out in Nollywood.
Yes, exactly. And in reality, you see this playing out. It talks about the political side of this. Politics.
That's politics.
And this is where there's a need to separate politics from governance.
Absolutely.
Not just in the interest of the governor, not just in the interest of the chairman, but the bigger picture of looking at the interest of people at the local government. You have a situation where you just feel because you don't like someone's face, or you're not comfortable,
or he's not playing to the
he's
gallery.
not playing to the guy, or playing to your own role, not to that of the people. And this is where the position of the people comes in, where they need to hold their local government chairman accountable. You have a situation whereby the councillors, between 10, you're usually in that local, you usually have between 10 and 20 councillors, depending on how large the local government is. So if you have them, they're in position to do check and balances, just like at the national level or the federal level. You have the three arms of government who do check and balances to one another. Now, at the local level, you have the councillors who are in position to also ask questions, demand answers from the chairman. But you have a situation because maybe the chairman is your brother, is from your village, is this, we bring sentiment into it, and as a result, instead of having objectivity, looking at transparency and accountability, you now have a situation whereby decisions are being subjected to interest of some few, which is why we're having this conversation to correct this narrative, for the local government chairman to understand that the people has to be supreme in their programs, in their activities, in whatever they are doing. They need to separate politics from governance. And that's why I'm happy this bill will outrightly address all this. So there won't be need for the governance at local level to be at the prerogative of the chairman, but the law is there, which was why I talked about the need to review some of even these laws. He talked about the need for LCDAs. Like a state like Kano now, as big as Kano is, you know, who has about 40-something local government. Now, but it becomes a necessity to have LCDAs now in order to bring proper administration to local government. And that's why most of these governors are coming up with these ideas. I think it became popular with our president now when he was governor of Lagos State. It became an issue between Lagos State government and the federal government, which led to
President
Obasanjo.
Yeah.
And so, but now I think the understanding is there now that there's a need for, is a necessity, because you must understand that things keep evolving over time. So when it comes to local governance, there are need to bring in new ideas, fresh ideas, in order to ensure that you unbundle the bottleneck at the local governance, so that you have a situation whereby you just have local government for nothing. So that's why these LCDAs are being devised. And in fact, they can graduate to become local government. So it's a way to decentralize local governance and administration. And for me, I think it's a good one.
Yeah, but you say, is it that once the local government, once they are granted autonomy, it's Uhuru? Do you think that solves the problem? It's going to be the same people who are there now.
No, what it means
there's a need for a total change of, you know,
reorientation.
The mindset needs to change.
Yes.
Just like we were talking about palliatives earlier on, how there needs to be a change, a paradigm shift. From the way people think matters a lot, right? It's going to be the same institution, the same people. But if the thinking changes, that's when success comes. Now, what guarantee do you have that the chairman or the councillors will not still be looking up to the governor as the big brother?
You see, the starting point is if you have the legal framework, that's rudimentary. That sets the pace for the change we're talking about. I'm using the word change now because like a paradigm shift from what we used to have. So if you have a legal framework that supports autonomy of local government, it means the chairman can rely on the provisions of this bill or the law to guide his activities, even if it's in variance with what the governor wants or some of his officials at the local government. But what it means is acting within the law. And what that means is that's the starting point. Are you with me? So what that means is if this bill sees the light of the day, it sets the pace for all the changes that are to come in. And then afterwards, you can now start having orientation. In fact, it takes one chairman to start and becomes popular. And I'm very sure if one chairman will start, others will take you from that. And what that means is it becomes a ripple effect whereby the law itself gives them, it emboldens them to be able to take up the responsibility when it comes to autonomy. You must understand that over the years, this issue of joint account has been a challenge, has been a situation whereby what is due to the local government, they don't get it. And therefore, they are being stifled, you know, they can't pay salaries. And over time, it has been a controversial issue. So I am very sure no local government chairman will not want autonomy because he or she knows the impact of that to local governance. And I think that's part of what we're going to have and more discussion in this regard. Let's hold our breath to have our guests coming. All right, we'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll reconnect with our guests to talk more about local governance in Nigeria. Stay with us. Glad to have you join us on Early Exchange. We're still looking at local governance and administration. The need to decentralize local governance in Nigeria, by extension Africa. To add more substance to this discussion, we're being joined by Ida Ozer, an analyst. Ida Ozer, glad to have you join us once again.
Thank you. My pleasure always to be here.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah.
So let's look at local governance and administration. I would like to start with having your assessment of what local governance has been in the last few years. From your, you're a director of research, you've done several research in this regard. I would like you to talk about some of your findings when it comes to local governance and administration in Nigeria and as far as Africa is concerned.
I think in Nigeria, really specifically, it's been a very poor performance of the local government structure. And this particular president has spoken to that issue in one of his conversations, that there are a lot of things that the local government should be taking on. Of course, they are not able to do. And the state itself are having malfunction. And so when we look at politics in Nigeria, our eye is always on the seat of power in Aso Rock. And so it seems that the real functional arm of government, the tier of government, is actually the federal arrangement, because somehow states have left their responsibilities and they're not even doing well. Recently, I heard a governor of one state and say, oh, they should help him build federal government so that they can give him permission to do federal roads. And I was asking myself, how about the state roads? Are they fixed? Why do we need to beg federal government so that they can do federal road? If the state's internal roads are fixed, then of course there will be alternative to the federal roads. You see, this speaks to the failure of government at both states and the local level. Now, it's worse off at the local level because the councils are emasculated by the state governor. And what you see, and the trend that you have seen so far, is the sweeping change that when you have a local government election, it's only governors candidates that win. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. In the last election done in Edo State, for example, I heard the Labour Party, they were screaming that now you have done us this way, don't cry when Abuja come on you in the last election. You see, because it's to tell you how that arm of government had been really kept in captivity, not empowered to function. And of course, you remember that the immediate past president tried to see how to actually empower the local government so that they can get revenue directly from the federation accounts. Because as a third tier of government, they are not supposed to be the appendage of the state. Because in the first place, just like the guest on Zoom said, the state has no power to create local council. It's a creation of the constitution. And that was that imbroglio that happened between Obasanjo then and of course Tinubu when he was governor of Lagos State. Because he tried to create local government, and then the president said to him, look, the constitution does not recognize what you are doing because you don't have the power to amend the constitution. Because for you to be able to alter the constitution, you need 2/3 of the 36 states to say yes, which is a tall order, really. Because in the 5th schedule of the constitution, you see that the names and the designations of the local government are listed in the constitution. So if you have to change that, you have to amend the constitution starting from the National Assembly, then to the State Assembly, voting in support. So one governor cannot unilaterally create a local council. So that was why, of course, it was difficult for the president really to fund Lagos at that time. And says, either you return to the status quo, or we have to withdraw what you have. You see, this is a problem. So since it's a creation of government, then why are they not receiving their money directly? So Order 10 of the immediate past administration gave the power for federal government to wire money straight to local government and to the judiciary so that they can have some measure of independence from the executive governors of states. But what do you see? You see that, again, they went to court, and even the law court squashed Order 10.
Which is why you have a scenario like this, the one I'm going to be painting, and I would like you to react to that. Recently, local government chairman in Ogun State, their leader, led other chairmen to Governor Abiodun of Ogun State after they had accused him of diverting 11 billion naira. So there was a fisticuffs between the chairman and the governor. Shortly afterwards, the chairman went to visit the governor and were prostrating and begging. And shortly after that incident, the mouthpiece of the group of chairmen was impeached by councillors for diverting funds.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about. You see, the eclectic nature of our political system. We're so immature.
That's the word, right?
Yes, so immature. The political structure in Nigeria, the political party structure in Nigeria is so immature. We have not been able to evolve a strong political culture where really you have many people who are stakeholders.
What do you mean stakeholders?
Now, when you have a stakeholder, like in a normal setting of a political party, you have the state political structure, for example, where you see the state chairman of the party, the ward chairman of the parties, they are all elected democratically and they function independently. Now, what you have is most of the states, the chief executive of the state determine who become even the councillor.
Which is what you said earlier.
Yeah.
That is the candidate of the
governor.
governor.
So is the candidate of the governor.
That wins an election.
Oh, yes. And this is the real problem. This is why state houses are not functional. Because they so massively rigged election that the opposition is weak. One man want to determine who become the ESCOL at the ward level, ESCOL at the local government level, ESCOL at the state level. So every of the party organ and structure is in the hand of one man, who is the executive governor of the state. And now when this happens, you see, the funds are wired through the state to the local government.
Aha.
Oh yes, so this is a real problem. This is why governance is not happening there. And it is what the executive governor of states give to the local council, that is what they can spend. And so they are also paying blind eye because, of course, we have seen over a period of time that most of the time these things are not done well. But see, there are models that worked, but I think Lagos worked a little bit.
All right. Let's take a shift from the local governance administration now and now go to, homegrown tech solutions. We want to talk about the technical aspect of it. And to flesh in that discussion, we are being joined by Samuel Adeosun, who is a tech expert. Samuel, thanks for joining us on Early Extinct this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's nice to be here.
All right. We've been looking at local governance and administration, but now we are taking a shift to the technological part of it, which is talking about homegrown tech.
Right.
I would like you to give us a better perspective into what homegrown technology is all about.
All right. Let me just say it this way. Homegrown technology is just a medium at which we have all kinds of innovations, inventions, and developments that is done locally, or probably let me say by a particular country without exporting. And I can literally say that China is spearheading this particular move actually, because in China, when you get to China, virtually every household are growing one technology gadget or the other. So I think that here in Nigeria, since we're bringing it out to Nigeria, I think that homegrown technology solutions is just a means for us to create technological products, gadgets, services, so that we can actually import it outside the world instead of us importing them down here. But those are the things that we do here naturally from our own local space.
All right. I'd like you to do a background of the demand, the market in Nigeria,
Okay.
talking about the tech space in Nigeria. I'd like you to talk about the potential, the market, the demand for homegrown tech in Nigeria. How big or huge could this be as far as Nigeria is concerned?
Well, the market is very large, it's very big because I realize that Nigeria, according to the developed country, it is said that Nigeria is an underdeveloped country. But at the fact to say that Nigeria is a developed country, when you look at Lagos, you look at Port Harcourt, you look at Abuja, you will see that the demand for all of these things is there. It's actually very there. It's visible for everybody to see. So we can say that the market is very, very large as we have so many tech experts, innovators who are trying their best just to make end meet by providing solutions through technological products and services. So the demand is massive. For instance, looking into the e-learning service, e-learning, there is a need for us to have different kind of curriculums, different kind of online platforms. Though we can easily see that Andela is a particular platform whereby you can actually learn online, digitally. So the demand is going every day. And since the world is going very fast, it is time for us as a country to also catch up with the globalization and with the growth we are seeing every here and there. So I would say that the demand is very, very large, and it is very much important that we are not left behind. We are not left behind because if we are left behind, we can literally say that we are just like what they've said we have. So Africans have to rise up to this challenge since the market is there, since the demand is large. Looking at the transportation system, the transportation system in Nigeria is, well, let me say, is growing. As it is now, it is actually growing. But we can't say that we are doing our best. The demand is there, the transportation. We can have, for instance, Uber started. We have boats started. Different kind of digital transportation systems are rising. Looking at digital banking, e-banking, all of these things are already arising, and the market is large. But what we actually lack is the finances, the structure, the technical know-how on how to actually make these things reality in our time. So I can say that everybody, especially those who are in the tech industry, are actually looking for means to make sure that they find a space for them to thrive in this large market that there is.
So you've been talking about large market, right? Let's explore the information and communications technology. In 2021,
Okay.
September precisely, the Nigerian government approved the 5G in Nigeria. Now, the NCC shortly after that estimated that Nigeria has about 85 million broadband subscription. That's huge, right? That's about 45% of the population. And 206 million lines in the voice segment as of June 2022. That's a huge market. How can Nigeria as a nation cash in on this huge market like China is doing right now?
Well, I think China did not start just yesterday. It starts from a mindset. It starts from knowledge. I would say that Nigeria, as it is, the government is not actually helping the matter. The government is not actually giving us the platform, the privileges for us to actually make all of this happen. Let me say that the government of China were the one that started this move. Okay, looking at Singapore. Singapore has something we call the smart nation. It is something they started from the governance level, not from the local space. It is from from the federal level, not from the local, not from the community. The government give them the platforms, the privileges to make all of these things happen. So if the government are not ready to support, there is no way we can thrive as a nation. So I could say that if the government have the right perspective, have the right mind, or probably have the future for tech, I'm telling you, it will be easier because we have a lot of experts in Nigeria. For me, my company is Smart Nation, and we're starting a move called the Prince of Africa. I'm reaching out to all African nations to come together and build a smart nation. And I'm reaching out to the governors of different African nations. So we can literally say that if the government of African nations bringing it down into Nigeria are not ready to bank on these spaces, I'm telling you, experts in tech industry might lag behind. I might lag behind when it comes to tech in the global market. So it starts from the head, it starts from the leadership, it starts from management, it starts from the government of Nigeria, from the federal level. If I want to start, there's a limit I'm going to say, but if it starts from there, we can partner together. So the reason China is having headway, even at some point, there is a fear that China might become the world power, might become the world because of the things they are doing. But if Nigeria can rise to that standard and say that, all right, because of the vision we have for it, imagine Dubai. Dubai has a vision for 2030, 2050. All of these things started from the governance, not from the local level. If the governance is right, the leadership will be easier, followership will be easier. So I think everything starts first from the leadership level.
Let me bring the conversation to the studio now. Let me bring it to Idauza. You know, we're talking about homegrown tech. I want you to, I would like to have your take when it comes to the capacity, when it comes to the right infrastructure to support homegrown technology. Do you think these things are there? We have the right infrastructure? Then let's talk about the skills. Do we have the right skills as far as Africa is concerned when it comes to supporting homegrown tech?
Well, I think as a layman in this particular field,
Okay.
what I see play out, just listening to Adeosun speak about China and Singapore and Dubai, and of course, I don't think he had put into consideration the mode of governance in those areas. We're typically a capitalist state. And of course, it's not the business of government to run business. Because capitalism says individuals develop their space and they run business. And because China has a socialist posture, so it was very easy for China to have determined how their business run. And then, of course, Singapore, of course, one leader run for 33 years before he retired. And even at retirement, he was still overseeing what was going on in the business until he died. Now, these governments are different. So, of course, in UAE you have a monarchy where government only try to determine everything that happens. But we are here coping with democracy and with capitalism at the same time, which give freedom for people to really run business. You see, the challenge really for us is, yes, we could do a lot better. We have very intelligent and smart kids and people who can really learn. But another thing that we must also pay attention to as a nation is the ability to do things well. The pain to sit on a project and ensure that it is done appropriately, perfected. We don't have that, staying power. And this is what I say to people. There are local technology everywhere. But can we even compete in West African borders? It's a challenge. It's a challenge. So we need to build capacity. And that will start with a very functional education. And so when we have an education that is quite functional, we will be able to really raise people who are intelligent. Because we have them. We have the DNA. And that's why when we go outside, we excel. All we just need is that ecosystem that is built around our educational system where children are allowed to think for themselves and not think for. This is a problem because the way education is managed here is that the lecturer or the professor think for the students and the students are not allowed to think for themselves. And until we get into that kind of disruptive education where students can challenge assumptions of professors and they will still pass their exam, we will not be able to actually democratize that technological space in Nigeria.
All right, I'd like to come back to you. Our in-house guest here, Idahosa, said we run a different style of governance from what you have in Dubai, in China, and in Singapore, like you alluded to earlier on. And then he talked about the ecosystem and also the caliber of people that graduate from schools. But when you talk about, intelligence when it comes to technology, Nigerians are doing well, right? You are the CEO of your company. I'd like to speak to that. I'd like you to speak to that.
All right, now looking at that, like you rightly said, we need an ecosystem. Even with this ecosystem, we can literally see that we don't have enough infrastructure to actually run what we intend to do. For instance, we don't have internet. The broadband, like you said the other time, 5G was introduced to us, but at some level, we still have some limitations. Power supply is not there. In literally most of these countries that I mentioned about, all of these things are natural. They are natural for them. If they don't have them probably in an hour time, they're going to be an opera. But in Nigeria, before you can even have electricity, before you can have internet at times, you can suddenly see that MTN went off. There's no light. So all of this is a part of the limitations that limits us from rising to standard. And like you said, fine, we might not be running the same system with them, but the word democracy, like he said, is to be given the privilege, the freedom for us to do all of these things. But at some points, the freedom is not there. We're not getting the right support, the right partnership, the right investments that we need for us to make Nigeria a better system for us. And with the ecosystem, I think it starts with us partnering with the government. If the government can have a vision for us, like you said, through the educational system, if the government can have a good educational system for us, with the right curriculum system for us, so that we can raise intellectuals on how to start something, just like this guy, Mark Zuckerberg. The Facebook he created started with himself and his friends. Then from there, introduced it to his community. Then from them, boom, to the world. It is because there's a platform, there's an already existing platform for them to ride on, for them to thrive. But without this platform, without these privileges, it will be hard for us to thrive as a nation, even as an individual. As the CEO of Smart Nation, I'm also going through some challenge when it comes to doing all of these things. There's not enough platform. We are trying to break the ground for us to thrive. So we find it so hard for us to move at the speed we want to move because there are limitations everywhere. Though, don't mistake me that there are limitations also in this country. Fine, but it is not at the same level. Their limitations might be probably environmental limitations, not infrastructure limitations, not the right information they need, not internet, not electricity, not human capital. But here in Nigeria, it is hard to tell, and it's actually hard to find.
All right. Let's talk about the commercial aspect of homegrown tech. What will be your recommendations on how government can commercialize homegrown technology? You are the CEO of your company. From your own experience, I would like you to talk about what the government can do, because you were talking about some of the challenges, talking about infrastructure and all that. But I'd like you to talk about what they can do, because the essence of this conversation is to shape policy. So what can be done to ensure that you commercialize homegrown tech as far as Nigeria is concerned?
Okay, I think the first thing we need to do is actually to create new policies, yes, let me just call it new policies and structures that can actually give room for all of these things. And for us to commercialize these things, first, I think, like I said, we need to create policies for it. Then number two, I think we need to have a market for it, like an ecosystem for it. For instance, Silicon Valley is there. Most of these major brands all over the world, Facebook, SpaceX, and the likes, Instagram, everything are in Silicon Valley. And we also want to create our own Silicon Valley. So if there are policies that support what we intend to do, it will be easier for us to thrive. If there's a market, enough market for it to thrive, it will be easier for us to thrive. And like I have something I have for that I call intellectual property protection. We have so many gadget innovations that we cannot just push out there because we are scared that people might actually steal them. People might actually, even the government at times can take those things and demand that they are the owner of these things because probably we are just rising in this field. But if there are policies that protect us, that protect our intellectual property, that protect what we've done, I think it's going to be easier for us to thrive moving forward. And also, another thing I have here is regulatory compliance. For instance, at some point, the government banned Twitter in Nigeria because of what is going on Twitter. So little things like that. And I think everything lies on the policy. If the policies are stated rightly for us and it is broad enough, I think we are going to thrive as a nation when it comes to homegrown technological solution because we are trying our best. But if the government can actually help us commercialize it by giving us funds, giving us platforms, giving us opportunity for us to partner with them and to partner with other countries, I think it's going to make it easier for us to run. So I think drafting up policies for us, protecting our intellectual properties, and at the same time trying to give us, they often tell us that they are funds, they are government funds that can actually operate. But when you look into it, there's nothing there. There are people that have already been slated to be a partaker of all of these things. But if these things are available to us, I think it will be easier for us to commercialize the homegrown products that we have. And also, if they can make room for us to get most of these gadgets not built at a cheaper rate, when the government can partner with probably China, with Singapore, with Dubai. Like recently we heard that our president went to Dubai to actually bridge the gap between our government and their government. So things like that can actually help us make these things much more commercialized.
All right, Samuel, briefly, because we are wrapping this segment up now, just very briefly. Financial Services Innovators, FSI, recently said that commercializing indigenous technology solutions can help boost Nigeria's economy. And they made recommendations like, writing programs in Fulani, Hausa, Yoruba, and also organizing hackathons, like you had a cookathon where Lillian Bachi won, broke the Guinness Book of Records recently. They're saying organize cookathons where you discover and groom young tech talent. What's your take on this, briefly?
All right. I think there is a need for cooperation from different communities, from different native languages and all. And if there is going to be a bridge for us to work together, I think it would be better off for us to start with ourselves. So let me say that briefly. The greatest weapon any nation can have is their language, and we cannot always use the lingua franca to actually communicate everything at the same time. If some countries in quotes can stick to a particular language that all of them can understand and pass the same information to them at the same time, I think it would be better for us also as a nation to have a medium whereby we have the same mindset, the same goals, the same language, the same vision for us to achieve all of these things at hand.
Thank you. That was very brief, and thank you so much for hanging out with us on the show today, Samuel Adeosun. So we've been talking about homegrown technological solutions. Is still your favorite show, Early Exchange on Silk News. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back, and stay with us.
As far as early exchange is concerned, it's about having the right conversation with the right guest. And we've been looking at homegrown tech. That's been a conversation, looking at the dynamics and what it takes to commercialize it. We had Samuel Adeosun earlier, who talked about what the federal government can do to ensure that that homegrown tech is being commercialized. We're going to have another guest, and before we have another guest, let me, Vivian, we have a station where Samuel talked about the technological infrastructure, having the right infrastructure to drive this. As far as Africa is concerned, it's been challenging over the years where you have people who have the skills, who have the will, but the resources, the right environment, they are not there. And that has been the situation according to Samuel, who has been a tech expert. He's a CEO of a company from his own experience, where, we talk about local governance earlier, where in a place like Africa, you turn yourself to your own local government. You provide your own resources, you train yourself, provide your own resources for your business to thrive. Sometimes you construct the road to your factory. Sometimes you sponsor your team members or your staff. They go on training.
You buy your generator
you
set.
you buy your generator. So indirectly, you're turning yourself to another local government chairman or your own local government so that your business can thrive. Same thing is what the tech experts do are experiencing the same environment. You have a situation that someone is being trained abroad. He feels, okay, let me come home to give to my society, to give to my village or to my people, having the knowledge. Now he comes there, but the right environment, the technology is not there. And that's why he said there's a need for government to bring in tech experts, private entities, individuals who will invest in that space, create the right environment, the right structure for these young tech experts to thrive. As far as Nigeria is concerned, we are blessed when it comes to young talents.
The good thing is you don't just leave it to government, but like what Sook News is doing right now,
Yeah.
you bring in experts like this, you talk about it, and then you come up with a policy, make recommendations to government, say this is what we think will work, and then, if you have a government like the one we think we have, they will listen and eventually we'll move forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
To add another perspective to this discussion, we are being joined by Ibrahim Suleiman, who is another tech expert. Ibrahim, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange.
Yeah, good morning and thanks for having me. I'm really delighted to be with the team. I don't take it for granted.
It's a pleasure having you here with us.
It's
now,
a pleasure
let's
having
talk
you here
about
with us.
homegrown technology. I would like to start from the basic, which is help us understand the potential. We had a guest earlier who talked about the potential, the market. But I need you to talk about the peculiarity of the homegrown technologies as far as Nigeria is concerned, and some of the challenges that have been associated with that space. He alluded to the fact that we have the right skill, but he was talking about the right environment and the infrastructure. So I would like you to lend your voice to that, to do an assessment of the tech space in Nigeria and some of the challenges that are peculiar to this space.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I think the opportunities in the tech space in Nigeria are enormous. It's vast. Being a practitioner in that space, I've seen so much, and I've been opportuned to be part of a lot of transformational initiatives and programs across the public sector and the private sector. So I know for a fact that the opportunities are enormous. Nigeria is the giant of Africa for so many tangible reasons, and one of it is because of the population and the demographic. We are over 200 million, according to what statistics say. Some people will say, okay, we give or take, we are maybe around 150 million, but that is an enormous market. And because it is an enormous market, there is a lot to be done. There is a lot of problems, and because there are a lot of problems, that means there is a lot of opportunities to tap into, and technology comes into play to be able to help us to be able to do that. So, as an emerging market, The market and potential is huge. Our internet penetration, I looked at it this morning in preparing for this. Statista, hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Suleiman? Are you there?
Okay, yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me, let me know.
I can hear you clearly now. Please go ahead. I can hear you clearly now. Please go ahead. I can hear you clearly now. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so like I was saying, the population and demographic makes us an enticing market. Our rising internet penetration also. As at this morning, I checked Statista, which is a statistics initiative, and we are about 54% internet penetration. That is huge. 54% of about 200 million people. That is a lot of people with access to broadband. And then so you can imagine what can do in terms of payments, making payments easy. I know for a fact that this government currently is trying to digitize how they run this palliative thing, this palliative program that they're talking about. Technology is going to play a major role in that, in trying to help to probably enroll people into that palliative net, disburse those payments into that palliative net. Technology is going to be a major enabler in doing that. Also, digital transformation, fintech revolutions also have been a major thing in Nigeria. I want to commend those people who are part of that Startup Act that was signed last year. And with that, that allows and helps the ecosystem to grow and to be more robust. So you have a lot of people who have come together, who are practitioners in that particular space also, who have come together to be able to convey what their challenges are, convey the structures that they need, and government listened, and we were able to sign that particular act last year, and that is a major one for the tech space and for financial inclusion, for the fintech space in general. And of course, as you know, e-commerce and marketplace in Nigeria is also something that is growing at a very rapid state. I know in 2021, Jumia posted an enormous figure in terms of the kind of transaction volumes that they did, and maybe because of COVID, but it begins to unlock and let you see the impact of what technology is doing currently in Nigeria. So there is a lot in terms of the market in Nigeria. Just Nigeria alone, the solutions that we are building and how they are impacting us in agriculture, in health and telemedicine, in edtech. EdTech in 2020, we saw the rise of U lessons and how it is impacting today also from, I think, Sim Shagaya. So these are homegrown solutions that are doing tremendous things. I think today, if I'm not mistaken, the Ministry of Education is on board with this with the ULESM platform, and that is something that is worthy of mention. So these are, in my mind, homegrown solutions that are pioneering, pace setting, and impacting the lives of people in Nigeria.
Solution, because that's the focus, right? An institution, Financial Services Innovators, recently said that they are organizing a hackathon in collaboration with the Nigeria Association of Computing Students to address the dominance of cash transactions within the informal channels in the suburban parts of Nigeria, including university communities. So you see a collaboration between the private sector and, the educational sector. I want you to speak to this.
So I've always been a proponent of the fact that universities and institutions of learning are places where we also need to focus on. Of course, a lot of the people who are setting the technology drives today in Nigeria, of course, most of them are from our universities, from our education in Nigeria. So that's why I was listening to the in-house guest earlier, and he was saying, "Oh, our education." And in my own mind, I think our education is it's not where it's supposed to be, but for now, it's churning out the best of minds that are doing amazing things. So people like Flutterwave Pioneer, people like Paga, people like Paystack, and so on. So these are people who came out of universities in Nigeria and are doing great and amazing things. So I think also that um, um, in a manner of speaking, taking it from the streets back to the school, organizing these hackathons, organizing these initiatives in schools, brings it closer to young people, help them to be able to think outside that school curricula that they have. Because part of the things that we faced back in school back in the day, where the fact that the school system was like a cocoon, whereby when you get into university, you are enclosed in that space and you really don't understand what is going on the streets in using that colloquial. So, but now because of what is happening in the tech space and the fintech space, and with these kind of initiatives, they taking it back to schools, it gives students that opportunity to be able to think outside that enclosed environment of school that naturally that a traditional curriculum will not actually give them. But with such hackathons, with such initiatives, that they begin to be able to understand what is needed on the streets, what is needed in the marketplace, and they're able to innovate because these are young people, and innovation is in their DNA. Plus, again, we are Nigerians. Innovation is part of us. So, and doing these kind of things, these kind of initiatives would only keep on to propel those. I think I heard of a story sometime earlier this year. The um, the the proponents of this CD care, the product that allows people to buy now, pay later, save now, pay later. Those young guys, those young cats were from OAU, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it was from a hackathon. I'm not so sure, but these are young people, and while in school, they were able to start building those kind of solutions. So these kind of things they help. They help young people in schools to think outside the box, understand what is going on, what is the value that needs to be the value needed in the marketplace, and help them to be able to um, transition properly and align what they are learning into what is needed in the marketplace.
When it comes to the tech space, Nigeria is being referred to as an emerging market. I would like you to talk to us what the government can do to attract, tech investors. You have tech hubs springing up in Nigeria here and there. You are aware of the story or the history of Silicon Valley. Maybe if that could be replicated in Nigeria. So talk to us. What can the government do to attract tech investors?
Great. And that is a fantastic question. And coincidentally, I think the new Minister of Information and Communication Technology will be that person who was in charge of the CC Hub. I think CC Hub has been part of those technology enablers in Lagos and across the country. So having somebody who has played a critical role in developing businesses, fintechs, now being the minister in that particular space is quite the right way to go. So he understands the marketplace, he understands the challenges. So he's able to bring in policy into that particular. So I think for this government, that is a step in the right direction. Also, like I mentioned earlier, the Startup Act that was signed last year is also a step in the right direction. That is how government can bring in those kind of things. And you mentioned Silicon Valley. Part of the major things that drove Silicon Valley, if I'm not mistaken, was I think there is a bank that probably the Silicon Bank or what it's called, and that was an enabler in terms of funding and financing for most of these projects. In Silicon Valley, these things are called experiments because that's how they are. So they're experiments, you go into the market, test out different ideas, and so on and so forth. And you need people who understand that space, people who understand that these are experiments that they could fail or they could take time and so on and so forth. So with this kind of person as minister who understand that particular ecosystem, then we can begin to also improve those kind of startup acts. We can begin to there can be synergy and collaborations with financial institutions who are able to understand and even institutional investors, venture capitalists who are able to know that, okay, this is not buying land and making profits in the next 1 year because it will double and so on and so forth. And that there are risks involved. These are experiments, and they're experiments that are always in the right direction. So these are some of the things that government can do going forward with what they've done so far to be able to support the ecosystem. There's so much to be done. Like I mentioned, so we are 54% in terms of internet penetration. I would believe that for this new government, raising the bar to like maybe 90% in the next 4 years will be something that will be cataclysmic for us, because imagine 90% of Nigerians having access to the internet. That will be huge in terms of how you reach people with services that are going to transform their lives. I also know that there is a rapid because I was at an event on Saturday. I was at the event of the NIMSI, the Nigerian Identity Management Commission, on Saturday during the Identity Day. And I know that the government is also driving identity, trying to capture and bring in everybody into that identity net, because those are the basics for development. Those are the basics for economic growth. Because when you know the identity of your people, you know how to plan for them. And technology is at the forefront helping to do this. So these are how governments also would help to be able to do this by also digitizing their efforts also. In doing this, there will now be strong collaborations with the private sector, with the fintech platform, to be able to bring in their knowledge and their know-how to help power their policies.
A lot needs to be done in this sector. You also said a lot has been achieved when it comes to innovations in Nigeria. So would you say that Nigeria's technology is mature enough to be exported?
I want to believe so, because today I know that products like Send from Flutterwave, products like Bata from Flutterwave, so most of these products are already cross border. So, and these are Nigerian innovations, So and they are doing amazing outside Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Egypt, and the like. So I would like to say that our product, our homegrown products in the software tech space are mature enough to move over because of these products that are already doing that. So I would like to see more of our agrotech products also cross over from Nigeria into the West African space, because we have a lot of arable land and so on and so forth in West Africa. So I would like to see our telemedicine, some of the things that we're doing to cross over also. And believe it or not, Nigeria is a test bed for innovation and development in West Africa, even with the developmental economics, developmental space. I've worked with international agencies in Nigeria around birth registration, capturing births, and so on and so forth. And technology is powering this. And the thing about it is that whatever kind of technology that works in Nigeria, it is easier to replicate in most other African countries because of the diverse nature that exists in Nigeria, because of the challenges that exist in Nigeria. So we are able to properly deploy technology to solve solutions in Nigeria. It becomes easier to be able to replicate it, because now you now have the data, you now have the insights, you now have the things that you see that works, and it becomes easier to be able to deploy them in other African countries because they are smaller and it will be faster and things like that. So yes, I believe that our technology is matured right now, and we've already seen export of our products into other African countries. And yeah, I believe so.
All right, thank you for that submission. our technology is mature enough for export. Ibrahim Sulaiman, thank you for joining us on Early Exchange and having to share your thought with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a breather now, and when we return, we'll have another conversation with another guest. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, you have no cause to worry. You still have enough to enjoy and to be part, you have the opportunity to be part of this conversation on Early Exchange. We've been talking about local governance and we've been looking at local government administration, and we went to the tech aspect of it, and now we're moving on to the investment aspect of it, talking about domestic investment. In recent times, there have been calls for Nigeria to improve its domestic investment. To shed more light on this, we are being joined by Segun Ogunlana, who is a business consultant. Segun, glad to have you join us on Early Exchange.
Hi, thanks. I think there must be a spelling error. It's Seun, Seun, Seun Ogunlana.
Oh,
Hi, how are you? Nice to be here.
Okay, I beg your pardon. It's okay. Sorry, sorry. I apologize for that. So we're having Sheun Ogunla now. I guess I'm correct now. All right, thanks
Yes,
for
you
that
are.
correction. Now, let's have you talk to us about domestic investment, talking about the role and importance of domestic investment when it comes to economic growth. I'd like you to elaborate on that.
All right. Um, well, thanks for that opportunity. I would say there's been a lot of clamor for foreign investment, but I think that our main focus should actually be domestic investment in Nigeria. And this is something that is very deep and it's something that is very important for us to look into. So I think there's been a very clear position in terms of how far can people help you. People can only help you as much as you want to help yourself. So this means that the foreign investments won't come until we in Nigeria begin to invest in ourselves. And one of the ways there are a lot of areas that we can make this happen, right? First, we understand the problem we face as a people, as a nation, right? And so we also have the solutions at hand. But the risk is nobody wants to take the risk because investment really is a long play, right? It's something that is like you farming, right? You need to sow a seed, you need to water it, or you need to wait for the harvest. And most often than not, we've not spent so much time learning to know how to wait before the harvest comes. So this is I'm just going to give you a story. Earlier in my career, I was working with a company called Ventures Platform. I think as way back as 2016, we started investing in small businesses in Nigeria, and then our principal then was Kola, and which is one of the at least major in Nigerian investors that we have now. Right, so as early as then, what always did was he looked for small companies operating in Nigeria and then gave them some seed funding. There was a point in time we even did a program and invited startups from across the nation, brought them into an incubation program, trained them, gave them mentorship, gave them seed funding of like 10,000 USD. And were surprised about the success and the impact that had on economic growth, about job creation, and even just even growing, increasing the livelihood of the participants. And just piggyback in a few years, part of the companies that we invested then was Paystack, which I believe you all know now. And by the time Paystack got another funding round from a foreign investment, you should understand what has happened to the domestic investment that we had. It has practically like um, doubled, tripled, or something. So it is very important that in the very early stages of businesses in Nigeria, that individuals, corporates, banks take the initial risks in investing in this business towards a future reward. And I would just quickly say that there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of sectors that we could really invest. Right. One of it, which is very important, is the agricultural sector. Right. And we have vast agricultural potential in Nigeria, like the vast land, vast farmland, and this is something that we could ensure that we tap into. So let me just paint a scenario for you. Imagine that in the next 5 years, we decided that we are um, streamlining our agricultural investment, and we are saying that each community, maybe for instance, like a local government or a state, is focused on producing a particular crop. So, for instance, way back, Ibadan, Oyo was used to focus on producing cocoa, right? So imagine we now say Ebonyi will produce curry, Enugu will produce palm oil, Katsina will produce maize, like that. And we now in text like whether through crowdfunding, either through bank having a very considerable investment, right? And then we grow the potential of these communities to be able to produce not just for the Nigerian market, not just for the African market, but for the global market, that we can now begin to export these crops. This would totally change the economic dynamics in the country. That is just one part of it. The second area that we really need to look into is manufacturing, right? We've not tapped the potentials that exist in manufacturing. A lot of times, what we export, what we export to other continents, it's been always our raw materials, which is not the best um, for economic growth, right? So imagine we begin to, rather than send our raw materials to these foreign countries for them to process and then send back to us. Imagine we have a chocolate manufacturing plant in 3 different states in Nigeria, right? That would basically transform our economy. Imagine also that we have not just one refinery, but we have 4 or 5 refineries within the country, right? And we have people within this country that have, at least at the present, the finances to start up some of, or to invest in some of these initiatives. These are some of the sectors that could just quickly and easily transform um, our our economy. So I'm going to talk about 4 types of domestic investment, right? There is the business investment, obviously, which is made by the private companies expanding and their productive capacity, maybe by purchasing new equipment or construction and setting up businesses right across the federation. The other type of domestic investment is public investment. This is when the government itself decides, either through the local government, state, or the national, to now um, create economic support and economic growth of a particular area. So, for instance, now um, we have federal schools, we have public schools that it's some sort of domestic investment to help pushing the issues of education, right? So imagine we now begin to expand that not just on education, but also on manufacturing, on agriculture, and even on tech, right? That would drastically change the economic landscape in terms of investment. We also need to also look at um, residential investment, which is something that I think for states like Lagos and Abuja, there's a lot of effort in that area. You will see a lot of housing scheme in Lagos, in Abuja, and some states like Ondo, like Ebonyi, Enugu have also started positioning for such residential investment. However, the the area that they also need to focus on is not just the housing investment, but in affordable housing investment. So we've not taken that residential investment to the point where an average salary earner within the state, within the cities that exist, would be able to access those housing scheme and then be able to pay it over a period of time, let's say 10 years, 15 years. We've not gotten to that yet. So this is a major area that need to begin to look into. So for instance, if you in states like Abuja, you see a lot of houses, right, finished, well done, and no one is staying in there because the price or the prices of those houses are not available to the average person. So rather than just build or focus on investing in residential for uh, high returns, there's also the need to begin to cater for housing as a necessity rather than a luxury. So there are a lot of opportunities to invest in that area. One other thing I will talk about is domestic investment as a role in economic growth.
Okay,
Right?
before
There's no
let me
way we
come in
can
here.
actually grow our economy
Let me come in here,
if
Sean.
we
Let me
don't.
come in here.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, let's try to wrap our heads around what you just said. Domestic investment, in a nutshell, is investment in the companies and products in someone's own country rather than those of a foreign country. For instance, China depends mainly on its, what it produces what he produces, he consumes what he produces, and he also exports what he produces. Little wonder it has one of the biggest economies in the world. So I'd like to ask you then, how do you make domestic investment attractive in Nigeria? What do you say to Nigerians to invest in Nigeria?
Okay, so thank you for that question. That's a brilliant question. And this is something that I and my friends have been trying to navigate around. So I would just tell you the driver um, for such um, for such position really is the bank, right? Now the cost of capital in Nigeria is extremely expensive, right? And that has really affected a lot of people that is trying to invest in the country. So when you want to set up a business or when you want to invest in a particular in any industry, right? You need to have your capital, which is expected, but you also need to be able to access the capitals from the banks, from financial other financial institutions. All right, and now getting those capital beyond the fact that the processes are cumbersome, there is also the high cost of those capital. So when you want to start a business, for instance, you want to go into the food business, right? And you want to set up this one-stop eatery that has all the local delicacies and start the process from the farm to the restaurant, right? It will take you a lot of capital to be able to set up a ranch, a greenhouse, and then the exquisite restaurants and world-class restaurants, and then the staffing, and then also the logistics around it. It will take you a lot of capital. So it is expected that at least you have maybe 30 or 20% of whatever capital you need to start. But then you now need support. Now the support is supposed to come majorly okay from financial institutions. But when you go to the financial institutions, and the financial institution is telling you that the cost of capital for that for each year is like a 36%. Now the question you're asking yourself is, and you need to start paying from the very first year. So the question you're asking yourself is, how do I make this up? Because this business sometimes the startup period might be like up to maybe like a 9 months or a 1 year or if not 1.5 year, right? And then so real operation might start maybe in the second year, and then before you even start talking about breaking even might be the fourth or the fifth year for the businesses. Now, when you look at it as an investor or as a business owner, it's not very convenient for you to do that, right? So that's one of the challenges that we have in this sector. However, what I think that we could do really is there needs to be a policy from the government or from the CBN to help drastically reduce the cost of capital to business owners and also from the financial institutions, right? Which would ensure that they also have a stake in the game and that the capital period is longer. So it's not a 2 year loan, it's not a 3 year loan, it's more like a 5 year loan, a 10 year loan, so that the business can actually go through the gestation period. That's one. Second, individuals need to be able to build business at a micro level. So at a macro level, really, because if you look at it, if you want to invest, rather than take your 10 million and go and invest in a restaurant, why don't you first take like maybe a 1 million and then run that 1 million for some like a mini restaurant for a period of like 2 years so that you would learn both the trade secrets, the challenges, and see the opportunities in that business. Once you've been able to take that learning, take that period. Then you can now invest the 9 million because with the 1 million that you paid around maybe for the first 3 years, you can actually see the trajectory of the business. And so when you're pumping in the remaining 9 million, you can actually still, and it's easy at that point in time for you to call maybe fellow individuals to come and co-invest with you, which if you can get the access from the banks, you can also now get the financial from every other and any other business person that can see your track record and then invest. investing. So my recommendation would be two approach. One, from the government angle, we need to have policies
All
um,
right.
or incentives for reduction of cost of capital and then increase in the tenure of capital financing. The second approach would be that businesses should do a pilot of every business operation before then they now scale. That way, it helps them capture the entire snapshot of the business in terms of risk and reward, and then be able to um, expand on that on that approach. I hope that answers your question.
That's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Sheung Ogunlano, thank you so much for your brilliant submissions on earlier exchange.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, Vivian, what a way to wrap up to this
Would that be all?
discussion. We talked about domestic investment and the need for government to put the right framework in place to encourage domestic investment and
In
also
Nigeria.
discourage capital flight.
Absolutely. He also talked about the 4 different types of domestic investment.
In
which
fact,
for
the
me was
critical sectors,
absolutely.
manufacturing the areas, domestic investment can be geared towards so that Nigeria can experience economic growth. That was fantastic.
It was, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, what a way to wrap up today's episode of this program. Don't forget, you can do a catch-up on our YouTube channel, and the conversation continues on our social media platform. I am Femi Ayodele. I'm from Vivian.
Yes, I am Vivian Oguche, and like I always say, thank you for hanging out with us this morning. We'll be right back, same time, same station. So if you had fun, let's keep a date. Until then, have yourself a very, very good day. Bye for now.